In this segment, we will delve into the question, who am I? Most people see this as a daunting question, one they would rather not face. For some, there is this fear about discovering who we really are. Perhaps, deep down inside, we are afraid to know that we are powerful beyond limits. Then, we would have no excuse for all the limitations we imposed on ourselves. We would have to take full responsibility for our life. We cannot stay in our comfort zones. We cannot blame others for our failures. We cannot even blame ourselves. But, asking this question is precisely what we need to do, to begin confronting these fears. This question turns our attention inward into our own intangible inner world, instead of our usual preoccupation with the outer world of forms. It is the first crucial step into the journey of self-discovery and self-understanding. There are two important prerequisites to this inner journey. The first is courage, for this is a journey that takes us deep into the shadows of our being. We will need to confront our fears, our pain, our weaknesses, our beliefs, our views, our attitude, our deepest and darkest secrets. However, we need not face it all immediately. The way to do this is to confront small fears and pain first, dealing with the ones that we can handle and cope with first. Then, we take slow incremental step towards bigger fears and pain, until eventually we are strong enough to handle even our most fearful shadows. No need to rush. Take your time. Take as much time as you need to do this. The trick is to do this in a safe way, one that is not too overwhelming for the self to handle. Now you know why the ancient called this path the warrior's path. Warriors and courage go hand in hand. So, when you begin this path, you become a warrior of sort. The second prerequisite is honesty. Walking this path not only requires you to be courageous and strong, but also to be honest with yourself. That is why it is said that honesty is the best policy. When you walk this path, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Denial is not an option when it comes to self-discovery and understanding, not if you truly want to know yourself. So, if you have a habit of denying things even when they are true before, now in this journey, you will have to unlearn that habit, and learn a new habit, the habit of being honest with yourself. This is a big deal, and a big step forward. There will always be resistance to change. Change begins with awareness. Awareness before change, or ABC. We must first be aware that we have these old harmful or limiting habits within us that need changing. Only then will we be able to initiate a change for the better. Old habits die hard. New habits need to be constantly repeated until they become our second nature. So, for this, we need to persevere. We need discipline. We need to keep repeating the new habit of being honest with ourselves. We need to remind ourselves to face the truth, however bad it may seem at first. Soon, we will discover that all those fears are illusory. They are not real. They are limitations we imposed on ourselves. Okay. So now that we have given ourselves these two prerequisites of courage and honesty, how shall we approach our question, who am I? Well, we can approach it from a few different perspectives. There is a philosophical perspective, a psychological perspective, and a spiritual perspective. No matter which one you begin with, you will probably end up dwelling into all of them eventually. Let's start with the philosophical perspective. Approaching the question, who am I? From a philosophical perspective involves looking at ourselves deeply, examining our sense of identity. Are we the roles we play in society? Are we just this body? Are we just this mind? Or are we both mind and body? And how are the mind and body linked together? As we delve deeper, we may even expand the examination to include our relationships with the universe, asking deep questions like, what is existence? What is life? What does it mean to be conscious? Or what is reality? From a psychological perspective, the question, who am I? Invites us to examine our own concept of who we are, our beliefs, views, perceptions, including the various roles we play in life, such as being a son or daughter, father or mother, boss or employee, friend or colleague. How do all these contribute to our sense of identity, of who we think we are? Consider also how our own upbringing, our family dynamics, our society and culture, and our personal experiences influence our own concept of self. Is this self-identity static, or is it evolving with time? And how does the story we tell ourselves, or our narratives, shapes our own identity? From a spiritual perspective, who am I? Can lead us into deep self-inquiry, delving into our true nature or essence. Are we our thoughts, feelings, perceptions, or body? What is the nature of the self? The ego? How can we transcend the limitations of the self? Do we seek oneness with the ultimate? And what exactly is the ultimate? What is the nature of consciousness? It invites us to examine our inner world through mindfulness practice, meditation, and deep contemplation. Yes, these are all very daunting questions. And, yes, until today, even philosophers and psychologists do not yet have the answers to these questions. The usefulness of asking ourselves who am I? Is not in getting the answer itself. Rather, it is in the exploration, in the seeking, in the inquiry. It is in the journey, not the destination. Along this journey, we will discover a lot of new things about ourselves, things we may not have even think of, or think about, before. In this inner exploration of who we are, if we have been courageous enough to persist, and honest enough with ourselves, we will definitely find gems of wisdom about ourselves, and about life. Even superficial examination of one aspect of our inner world, our thoughts, can be extremely beneficial to understanding ourselves. And examining our emotions can be equally beneficial too. For example, have you ever noticed that we have an internal dialogue with ourselves? Psychologists call this self-talk. And, if you notice carefully, for most people, their self-talk is negative. Most people have this poor image of themselves. They don't see their real self-worth. Instead, they identify themselves with their negative experiences, and then convince themselves that they are not good enough. Thus, they create an internal dialogue that validates their false belief about themselves, and that constantly talk down to them, telling them they are not good enough, they are not clever enough, they are not beautiful enough, or other negative statements. Pretty soon, even they begin to believe their own false statements. Like everything else hidden in our mental habits, the first step to changing our own negative self-talk is awareness. Recognize that it is there. Acknowledge its presence. Only then can we do something about it. This is ABC. Awareness before change. Now that you have recognized the problem, what can you do about it? Well, you can start by observing how your negative self-talks affect you emotionally, how it makes you feel worse, how it dampens your mood, and saps away your energy. You can see how harmful it is to your well-being, affecting you both mentally and physically in a negative way. Once you have seen the danger, then hopefully you are motivated enough to do something about it. What can you do with your negative thoughts? Well, here are a few suggestions. 1. You can replace a negative thought with its opposite, positive thought. For example, you may have the thought that you are not good enough. Well, replace that thought with something else. Think of something that you are good at, and see how it makes you feel when you think about this instead. When you do this, what do you notice? Do you notice that you can choose to ignore negative thoughts? Or turn your attention to more positive thoughts? You do not have to be a slave to your thoughts. Just because negative thoughts arise does not mean that you have to entertain them. You do have the power to choose to ignore them. And, this is method number 2, avert your attention elsewhere. Choose a new thing to pay your attention to, something neutral or positive. Simply by averting our attention to something else helps to loosen the grip that your negative thoughts have over you. Method number 3, reframe your thoughts. For example, instead of thinking I am a loser, change it to I am having this thought that I am a loser. In this way, instead of seeing yourself as a loser, you start to see clearly that you are merely having the thought that you are a loser. This alternative way of thinking is actually more accurate and truthful than the first way, and it also serves to take away the power that the negative thoughts have over you. So, simply by looking inward into our thoughts can reveal a whole lot of things about ourselves, and helps us to change what needs to be changed. Do not look down on these small changes. Small internal changes like these can create a huge impact to our life externally. It empowers us and motivates us to become even better. Now, if you are truly contemplative, and you look deep enough, you will also realize these two truths. 1. That the universe is impersonal. This is an important truth to be aware of, because knowing this truth means you don't have to react to people, things and circumstances all the time. You don't have to blame them, or curse them, or be angry with them. This is particularly true with things like the weather, even though we know that weather is impersonal. It does not choose to rain on us. With people, it is a bit more difficult, although if you see things clearly enough, you will also realize that people don't really do things because of you. They do it because of them. In fact, if you look even deeper, they don't even do things because of them. They actually do it because they cannot help themselves. This is because we are all creatures of habits. We are conditioned beings. We do a lot of things automatically without thinking carefully because we have trained ourselves to react in such a way. Having said that, does that mean that we do not have to be responsible for our actions? No, of course not. We do have a choice. We only react automatically because we have a lazy mind. If we are mindful enough to observe our thoughts, most time we can see our habitual tendencies, and we can choose to stop them or change them. That was what we were doing earlier when we learned to change our negative self-talk with a positive one. We are changing negative habits of thinking with new positive habits. So, the universe is impersonal. Life is impersonal. Only we ourselves make it personal. We have been conditioned to react to everything in a personal way. Again, once we are aware of this, we can change it. This is ABC. Awareness before change. We have a choice. We don't have to react to everything in a personal way. In fact, it is much more beneficial to see things from an impersonal perspective first. When we see things from an impersonal angle, we actually see things more clearly. Our views are not clouded by prejudices and biases that are already built in our system. Seeing things more clearly and accurately means we can make better decisions, with better outcomes. Now, let's go on to the second truth. The second truth is that thoughts are not real, or rather, our thoughts are real only when we believe them. When we do not believe them, thoughts are not real to us, and have no power over us. Is this counterintuitive to you? After all, according to many gurus who taught the law of attraction, our thoughts are real. So, why am I saying the opposite? Well, I am not actually saying anything that is contradictory. I merely pointed out that our thoughts are real only when we believe in them. I added a caveat. Why is this caveat important? Because then, we do not always have to believe in our thoughts. Many of our fear-based thoughts are not true, but by believing in them, we give them power over us. They rule us. They determine how we behave and act. By knowing that we have a choice not to believe them, we can return the power to us. We can loosen fear's grip on us. We can re-empower ourselves. That's why it is important to know this truth, together with the caveat. So far, we have talked about looking at our thoughts. In the same way, we can also look at our emotions, our feelings. By examining our emotions, such as fear, we can learn a great deal about ourselves. Fear is a huge topic on its own. However, I want to at least say some things about fear here. Firstly, to face our fear is not easy. Again, it takes courage and a whole lot of honesty. However, the reward or payback is great. Once you have walked through to the other side of fear, you will have become a different person. You would have achieved a significant transformation, a significant growth. So, I strongly encourage you to face your fear, slow and steady at first, and bit by bit. As they say, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. If you start by looking at the whole elephant, you will be overwhelmed by its size, but if you focused only on one bite at a time, then it becomes more manageable. That's the same way we deal with our fear, one small step at a time. Secondly, once you have come through to the other side of fear, you will truly realize that fear is but an illusion. Fear is not real. Fear is a self-constructed lie. Realizing this truth can take away a huge chunk of your fear, leaving you feeling light and liberated to a certain degree. Right, we won't be able to cover fear in any comprehensive way here, so I will just stop here for now. If you want to know more about fear, check out our other videos on fear. So, to conclude, the question "Who am I?" is a very powerful tool for self-knowledge and personal transformation. It invites you to look within for your own answers, discovering new things about you that you never knew before. It is eye-opening and rewarding. It requires courage and self-honesty, persistence and discipline. It is a warrior's path, a transformative path, and a spiritual path all rolled into one. I wish you every success.